Welcome to the halfway point of the split where teams have got to shape up going into the coming weeks. Team Liquid is sporting their Captain America jerseys for today's game up against the Honda MVP Sven Skeren and Evil Geniuses. Both teams are tied for 7th. Who will come out on top? That's the big question to close out the first round robin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we put on some drafts on trial and go through some of the top lane tier lists until the timer reaches 0, and we jump into Champion Select. Right now, if we look at the standings, it feels like no one is catching up with Cloud9. FlyQuest, the closest at 3 wins behind them. And then we've got the Soup, as Mark loves to refer to them. TSM Immortals, Dignitas. You love it, Mark.
Everyone else has
You
brought
and
it
your
up.
Soup.
I said it once.
Mark's a Soup man. You heard it here. 100 Thieves, they're below Evil Geniuses and Team Liquid at the bottom of the standings. Today, though, we enter the second round robin, but if you need a quick summary of how the first half has gone, here's Rib with Spring Split, oversimplified so far.
Week 5 is upon us, and it feels like we got news of Broxah just yesterday. So for all of you who need a refresher, here's Spring Split Oversimplified. Halfway edition. Team Liquid signed a powerhouse jungler in the offseason, but old Johnny Law kept them from using Broxah, so they had Surenfire. Things didn't go well, but it wasn't all on the young jungler. Also, Keith supports a thing, and after going through the pits of backseat gamer hell, has actually proven to be a solid pickup alongside Closer, who came out of the gates swinging. Dig also started strong, but the Owl's been rested. FlyQuest has been climbing and winning on picks not named Rumble. Immortals are impressing, and TSM are proactive now. But every team trembles at Cloud9 as they aim to close out the first round robin with that perfect Cloud 9-0 record. Their final game of the first half is CLG, who have been better. And that's all you need to know about Spring Split Oversimplified. Halfway edition.
And while I appreciate the oversimplification of spring so far, I would love to hear from the three of you. What have been your favorite moments of the split?
For me, it's gonna have to be week 3 when Immortals beat CLG, not by a regular backdoor, but just walking right on through. It actually was just Altec walking straight down the mid lane while CLG.
They got the red carpet laid out.
Right?
The front door was open. Right this way.
Don't need to use the back door if the front door's open.
Like, these moments are just so hilarious because CLG felt like they were on the brink of finally getting it together. They were winning the whole game long, but then forgot to lock the front door.
Yeah, that was a pretty brutal one. Mine's also a little brutal, but it's in a good way as well. For Keith McBrief, just the hook onto Doublelift. This was like at the height of the criticism that I think he was facing. Had some rough games where he was getting picked off a bunch. Then to go up against Doublelift and get a 2v2 kill in lane, and then he kind of continued that momentum through Golden Guardian's 3-game win streak.
Justice for Keith. Finally.
Yes.
We
Very
never
much
doubted
so.
him. It was those other guys.
Yeah, we never did.
And it was a clean play. They used the auto attack to kill the creep as the hook came out. You know, it was actually good.
Also in week 3. Week 3 was a big week.
That's
for
true.
exciting League of Legends here in the LCS.
I just hope that hook wasn't actually coordinated. It was his pure luck, and now we're just raising.
He was gonna hook him.
He was
down.
trying to execute the minion,
for the
right? For a relic shield stack. For the
Come on, give him more credit.
That would have been so funny if that were the case. No, it was very well executed by the two of them. As well, I'd like to call out the FlyQuest tree counter. Great to see teams getting behind the environment and looking to make some real change in the world.
Who would have thought playing games would end up saving the world?
Over 1,000 trees planted already.
Maybe a
That's
little
actually pretty
hyperbole.
incredible.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's what you get when you're the second place team in the league, right?
Yeah, and I asked them where these trees were going, and they said that right now the trees are going to be aimed at the Australian wildfires, going to get in that area back on track, which definitely love.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. TrueQuest has been good. One of the highlights for me has been actually tracking Sven's hunt for 100 KDA throughout the split. Has been ruined.
He didn't get
but
it.
I had
Get it.
so much fun actually watching him play so well, but also his opponents, you know, are they willing to ruin the
Yeah,
KDA? You
right.
know, it was getting more and more on people's minds later into the split. So
Mark
I
even
found that
made a
really
plea
fun.
on air. He said, if you don't think you're going to win the game against Cloud9, I'd love to
So
see
it's Mark's
everyone.
I would do it.
Mark's
I'd
fault.
I'd
Thanks for
love to
ruining
see
that.
everyone
I'm
to kill Sven.
I'm
Mr.
surprised.
Soup Boy over here.
Soup boy.
He didn't get the quest. I'm surprised that it's your favorite when he came up short on the quest.
You know,
It was still
the
a great
struggle,
storyline.
The struggle, the journey, Mark.
Grim Dark fan.
It's not all about the destination, it's the
fantasy,
journey.
yeah. Oh,
The
okay.
fun we had along the way.
All right.
Those were
Brandon.
some of our favorite moments, but please share your favorite moments of Spring Split so far by tweeting at LCS Official or tagging them on Instagram. We'll be taking a look at some of your moments later in the show. Today's games, though, they kick off with Team Liquid versus Evil Geniuses. Then Game 4 has Pobelter getting his chance at his former team on his former team with CLG versus versus FlyQuest, all before TSMA versus EGA. Game 1 has two teams looking to close out the first round robin with a win, at the very least, to convince us that they could make maybe a late season surge.
Yeah, and I think they need to pick up this win for Team Liquid because their previous win over CLG was not convincing for me. Everyone has beaten CLG aside for the one Soraka game. So I want to see Team Liquid win today, as well as look more coordinated with Broxa, whether that's Jensen and Broxa roaming around the map together or meeting up with Core JJ. I want to see some jungle synergy here.
Obviously, TL hasn't had a great split, but something's working for them. They do have Broxa. They've gotten some practice time in. Jensen, I think, has been stalwart throughout the split thus far. And Doublelift and Core JJ are coming off, a pretty banger game in the bot lane, crushing CLG in that 2v2. So they didn't just win. Things may be looking up for TL.
I think they're going to have to just figure out what identity they want to run with, though, because Broxa did not have that much time. The win, like you said, against CLG was not that impressive, but this is a team that had to fill in the gaps with the jungler and trying to bring them up to speed. They have not figured out who they are with Broxa at all, and as far as I can tell, this is not going to be the same Team Liquid from the last two seasons. It's going to be a team that will have to really understand what Broxa brings to the table and if camping bottom lane is still the right play.
And if we talk about TL, maybe, looking on the up and up, still unconvinced, we have to look at EG, their opponents as well. Also sitting with 3 wins. Their 3 wins come over FlyQuest, Immortals, and 100 Thieves. Those are no slouches of opponents.
Yeah, those are good wins, and I think that's why some people have a little bit of faith still in EG. I think you have to look at how they're winning, too. A lot of those are pretty monstrous gold leads for 20 minutes in the game, and it makes sense from what we know about how EG don't seem to be exactly on the same page, that when they take snowball comps, if they get enough of a gold lead, they're mechanically competent enough to close the game out.
Right.
But if it's a close game, they're not as coordinated as other people in actually winning.
I think it's where a lot of people would point to the veterans again, so as Sven Skaren and Zazel to say, great, yeah, if you've secured that big enough lead, these 3 can probably, puppeteer the entire team to a victory. It's about those games that fall in the middle, or even the ones where they get set off behind. How do they recover? And that's what will really change them from a bottom-tier team to a mid to higher tier.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is in the mid lane, making sure that Jizuke isn't something that is forced to coordinate with the team. Champions like LeBlanc, too much agency. You're running him
Too much.
Too much. Is too loose. You gotta put him on champions like Malzahar that are forcing him to be
Not allowed to buy boots. He can go too fast.
Yeah, no, yeah, we gotta slow him down, right?
Yeah, I mean,
get him to the fight lab.
No flash. You can only
What an adjustment!
It's like it's like being crutched into.
Ridiculous.
I have to play.
All right,
I have to work on my
this
team.
keys into, I think, one point of improvement, which would be communication for the team. And Zazel actually shared some insight not too long ago on exactly that.
I'd say our communication is mostly Sven Skaren and I, but we also have a lot of individual decisions made through Bang and Jizuke. They're very opinionated. Bang's not outspoken, but he is very strict on what he'll do. So there's times when he'll just kill himself because we're not doing the right thing. It's like almost to punish us. And there's times when Jizuke will kill himself because he wants to go for an insane play. So it's like Bang's doing the right thing and we're doing the wrong thing, but it ends up with like us both being wrong, right? Because he doesn't really speak, but he knows what the right thing is to do. So oftentimes we have to deal with that. And then Jizuke's wild. So then it's like Dennis and I trying to catch up with what's going on in the game a lot of the time. But we've worked it out a lot. And I think Bang speaks a lot more to what he wants to do. And Jizuke can be held back a bit more. I mean, he's still a very aggressive player, just not so much at unreasonable times.
Okay, here's the thing about that, and this applies to everything from bronze solo queue to pro play.
Okay, so Iron, you're safe.
Iron?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Sorry to derail your point. Please continue.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? Doesn't matter what the objectively correct play is if you are doing it by yourself, right? So even if you know everyone should be at Dragon with you at that moment, if your team is not there with you and you go anyway and you kill yourself 1v5 or you kind of suicide or whatever, as he's saying Bang does sometimes when he is doing the right play, it is no longer the right play if you are not doing it with your teammates. You have to be able to work with your team. We have seen the best teams in the world. It's not that they do the perfect play every time. It's that they do the play that they have committed to as a squad together every single time.
And a thing he said there too about Bang, if he thinks the play is right, he'll just do it no matter what. And sometimes, like you heard Zazel say, he's kind of joking, oh, sort of to punish us. I've lived that experience.
Yeah.
That was the Piglet Season 5 Team Liquid roster, where he had a different view sometimes about how he wanted to approach the game. We were not able to communicate with him necessarily in-game in that moment about what he wanted to do, and he would just do it anyways.
Yeah.
And he would kill himself, and afterwards he'd be like, we were like, Piglet, did you hear the call? He's like, yeah, but it was wrong, so I did this anyways. That is so hard to work through as a team, because there's not just a lack of communication, there's a lack of trust and just willing to put your own opinion to the side to do what the team wants and then break it down later.
So while he kind of admits to having this bit of a discrepancy within the team, it does at least seem to have the notion of we are moving towards a middle ground. Realizing that it's not going to necessarily inspire confidence, do you feel like Evil Geniuses should go one way or the other? Should Evil Geniuses become more of a Jizuke, foot on the gas pedal type team, or is this team, more suited to the Korean, LCK style? Because this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like the tale of two regional styles clashing. You've got the LEC European in Jizuke who wants to go for it, and then you've got that slow, really calculated style of the LCK in Bang.
I dare suggest there's even a third style in there, because you have Svenskeren and Zazel that have an already different way of playing the game that now they're feeling like the majority, right? They have the Cloud9 parts, you've got Kuma, and now you have to deal with Jizuke or Bang. Who do you over-prioritize? It's your mid laner, right? He's having a lot more agency earlier into the game. But then you have world champion Bang, who has a hard time communicating as well. So I actually think it'll have to be Sven and Zazel deciding which one they want to go for, and just make sure that you're not compromising too much on one side, because if a mid or AD are sad, they're going to run it down.
Well, we'll have to see which one they choose today, right? Or if they've yet to make a decision.
Maybe no one runs it down.
Or maybe,
Hopefully.
maybe. One other thing that we are tracking in that first game of the day is Doublelift, who is about to hit 1,500 kills in his career, regular season kills. That is only 10 away, so it would be a large ask.
About
possible.
2 is a bit of a stretch. He's averaging 3 a game right now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's 2 easy penta kills.
You're right, yeah, just give him
seriously.
some pentas real quick.
Maybe invade
That's
level
2
1.
fights,
That's
Mark.
1 penta,
Yeah.
fighting in a
Poor
dragon. 2
JJ will
pentas,
serve
right
him
there.
up for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have 10 kills by level
Yeah.
4.
Why is
Mark?
a hater, Mark?
I'll make a
Guys,
bet
gotta
that it
keep
doesn't
that.
happen this
I
game.
expect
you
nothing
would make a
more
bet,
from
wouldn't
the
you?
soup guy on the
Yeah.
desk. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we take a look at some top lane tier lists, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where we are 14 minutes away from that first game of the day. With the LCS cresting the halfway mark of the split, it seems like a good time to look at how some of our players individually rank among one another. And today, Crumbs and Mark have brought some top lane tier lists. So let's get straight into it. Gentlemen, Mark,
pretty good.
hit me with the disclaimer.
All right, I like this. So for top lane, we were both on the same page where it actually felt really hard to differentiate a lot of these players. We did end up with basically 3 groupings, which is the top 2 are the same. 3 through 7 is kind of hard to determine, and we're all over the place. But then we do have a clumping of the bottom 3.
Okay.
But even within those, it's kind of all over the place, and it depends, I think, a lot on what you're valuing out of a top lane position.
So then let's start with where you align and what will be our barometer, the best top laner in the league, Licorice.
I mean,
Crumbs?
I think if you were to make a top tier list of every single player in the LCS, you'd have every Cloud9 member at the top
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
really hard to argue against Licorice right now. Statistically, he doesn't have a loss in him, and while he might not have the most kills for his team, he's really racking up when it comes to assists, when it comes to pressure, and picking right champions for the situation. Just yesterday, we saw him invading level 1 with a set that dictated so much of the game for Blabber, and that's the kind of moves that I want to see out of top laners at any step of the game.
We talk about what we value. There's nothing not to like about Licorice. He can
Right.
play the carries, he can play the tanks, he can play with jungler assistance, he can play blind and playing into a weak side of the map. So he really does do it all right now.
Broken Blade slotting in just behind him, but I actually want to jump now down to Huni because there's a little bit of a discrepancy here. This is that pack you were talking about, 3 to 7. Occupies number 3 here for you, Crumbs, and number 5 for Mark. So Crumbs, will come to you first again.
It's really tough to rank these guys, but I felt like Huni was a player that was really pivotal for his team. When it comes to Dignitas getting wins, Huni is almost always there at the forefront. His champion pool is highly relevant, and the fact that he's playing differently than last year, right? He's not putting himself forward and really running it down. He's being a lot more reserved. I think plays to his strength as a strong laner, and it's really adding a lot of power to Dignitas that I think they might have lacked when they were clutch Dignitas last year when he was a lot more volatile. So because of that stability, I just have to like him more than the other guys who are having a hard time finding that.
Mark, a little less convinced, and coincidentally, the person that you have occupying the number 3 spot is Huni's opponent from just yesterday in SOAS.
Yeah, and I think when you look at SOAS' stats, they don't necessarily jump off the page. They're fine. They're kind of average looking. And when you look at how Immortals wins, it's not because of laning. It's usually these late game situations where they have so many veterans in Xmithie and SOAS that they're able to outmaneuver other teams. And I have to think he's a large part of that. He's not getting exploited. They don't have that much, firepower in the rest of the team when you're looking at necessarily Ica or Altec. And so I don't think they necessarily have, Froggen in the mid lane that Huni is working with. And so I think SOAS and Immortals picking up a number of wins. He's looked good. And he has had some games where they did play around him, like the Someday game when he was on Cho'Gath.
Yeah. All right, one of the players that you two disagree on the most, in a sense, is Impact. But even what's notable to me, disregarding your guys' difference in ranking, is the fact that he's not in the top 3. This is a player that in pretty much any previous split in the LCS would be in the conversation of top 3, if not top 2 or top 1. And yet here he is for both of you, not meeting the mark.
He was always known as the weak side top laner, being able to do his thing without requiring a lot of resources. He didn't get a lot of resources when Schernfire was jungler for Team Liquid, yet he still kept his low death count, which is really important for me. As a top laner, I think it's very valuable to not die, especially when you're not being pressured, when you're required to survive a 1v2 dive. That adds a lot of value to your team's pressure at that time. Impact consistently does it, and I will have a little shout out. I think SOAS has been doing that a lot as well.
I think the thing for me is I don't really remember any of his standout plays. Like, what has he done to win Team Liquid games? Like you're saying, pretty error-free minus the Someday matchup. But other than that, like I can think of games where like Split Push Fiora game, Cho'Gath game, GP games. I can point to all these other guys and say, I remember them really having big impacts. Not there. And for some of the ones below him, too.
Right, so still waiting for him to turn things back on. That's where all of these guys stand now, but each of these top laners will look to change those rankings with a performance worthy of a postseason and a trip to the finals. And have you heard? MasterCard wants you to go to the spring finals in Frisco, Texas as well for free. There are 2 ways to win your seats. Either purchase RP using your MasterCard or save that card in the league client. Both ways automatically enter you to win. Get that set up, and we'll catch you here for more Countdown after the break. Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, about 7.5 minutes away from that first game of the day. In the high-stakes world of Champion Select, players must navigate between 2 separate but equally important groups. The coaches who influence their draft and the fans who judge them for it. Today, it's up to my analysts to make the case in draft defense. In this segment, Crumbs will act as the prosecutor and Mark will be tasked with the defense of the accused. The court will come to order. The Honorable James Dash Patterson presides. In our first case, we'll examine the draft from last week's matchup between TSM and FlyQuest, where the fans have charged TSM with inting the draft. Prosecution, your case.
Thank you. I am here representing the fans, and we are prosecuting TSM for overlooking the late game in this draft, my friend. Now, normally, I would be okay with TSM playing an early game composition, experimenting. It's spring. It's the time to do so. Look at the time, my friend. This game was played 1 week ago. 2 weeks after patch 10.3 came out. Patch 10.3 buffed scaling. Patch 10.3 buffed Yuumi. This is a blasphemous case of failing to read patch notes, and it translated straight into the draft. And they are saying that it was bad play. They are saying that bad play is the excuse for this. It wasn't. It was not reading the patch notes, not failing, and failing to realize that Yuumi is OP now. By the way, before you say anything, because I've seen your kind before, are you prepared? Are you prepared to swear whatever you're going to say on the Summoner's Code?
Absolutely. I don't know. What is the Summoner's Code?
Left hand in the air.
Yeah, left hand in the air.
I, Mark Zimmerman,
vow to
win all my solo queue games. Play my teammates. And
all right,
get
great.
this bit out of the way.
Let's hear it.
The prosecution has proffered their case. How does the defense plead?
We will submit a plea bargain.
Oh.
I will. Our clients are willing to admit that they perhaps did not favor this scaling quite enough. And I think if you want to make the case that FlyQuest had a better draft for scaling, I would absolutely agree. But if you're charged them for inting the draft and overlooking the players, I will sell you information on everything they did wrong and why this was an in-game issue and had nothing to do with draft.
The game could have been won, but Yumi is now 100% ban rate pretty much in every single draft. This was the debut.
I have order. The court will come to order. The defense has submitted a plea. Does the prosecution accept the plea that the blame is more towards the players and less towards the coaches for the draft?
On the condition that he acknowledges that he did not read patch notes, neither looked into the 10.4 patch notes.
I will speak with my clients, but I have a sworn statement from the players. I was speaking with them yesterday in that spot right there, and they confessed that it was in-game problems.
So confessions! A confession!
Wait, he has a sworn affidavit.
As
an eyewitness of that conversation yesterday, I can confirm that the players themselves said it was their own fault. And so it looks like maybe the plea deal will go through. Okay. We have one more case to deal with here today. Our next case will examine another draft from last week. Oh, we needed a verdict.
The judges. What's the verdict?
You wanted the verdict? I thought maybe the plea bargain.
Okay.
We'll get a verdict anyway. Shall we get a verdict? Let's go to our jurors. Foreman Freak?
Not guilty.
Gilmore! They were excited with the defense.
They crushed the early game. They were massively ahead, and they threw a team fight and lost the game. Wasn't the draft?
If a draft gives you a 9,000 gold lead at 23 minutes, that is a not guilty draft. That is a draft that wins the game.
Well, the jury has spoken. We'll come back to them in just a moment for our second case, which will examine another draft from last week, Dignitas versus Golden Guardians. Dignitas are being charged with bad prioritization. Prosecution?
All right, prioritization of the first pick specifically. You are first picking Elise for Grig. Number one, Elise, terrible pick in patch 10.3 as well. Scaling got buffed. On top of that, I don't see Grig making 2.3 in 2 years here. He did not get signed for that for this team. Why are you first picking that and giving away Orin and Aphelios, the best top-end AD in the meta right now? This is a complete fumble from Dignitas. I don't see how you could possibly excuse yourself from this one. I will not accept any pleas, Mark.
Does the prosecution rest?
If only I could, my good Dashington. I cannot rest when
no
drafts like this
There's so much
are happening around Summoner's Rift.
We plead guilty. First pick Elise is not good. But my clients, they understand their wrongdoings. They've learned. They're turning the corner. They will serve their time. They will be excellent inmates. They'll get out early, hopefully, with good behavior, and they will not first pick their jungler again, as evidenced by their Jarvan second phase pick and prioritizing.
Well, the defense, or the bench rather, recognizes the remorse of the defendant, but we are going to go to the jury for their official verdict. Foreman Freak, once again, what is the call?
Guilty.
Guilty.
We sentenced you to 2 months
That's
of
how I make my money.
EOS solo queue.
I was going to say,
atone for your sins.
The recommendation is how many months again?
2 months of EOS
2 months
solo
of
queue.
EU solo queue. Please pass that along to your clients.
Yeah, we'll accept it.
Thank you again, jury members, for dedicating your time to following through on justice on the Summoner's Rift. Finally, though, I'd like to get some win conditions on that board for the first game of the day. EG versus Team Liquid. We'll start with EG. Mark, that's you.
All right, I want Jizuke to get a volatile counterpick mid lane matchup. I think we saw how they are winning. We heard from Zazil about the miscommunications between the team. I don't think you can go into mid game even against Team Liquid and win, even though Team Liquid's struggling as well. So get something Jizuke can pop off on, as well as just having strong laners all around so you hopefully naturally accrue a gold lead. I know we're talking about scaling and everything like that, but I don't think
that's
EG works well enough to even attempt that game plan. They need to go and do what they did against Immortals and get a massive gold lead and snowball.
Fair enough. Get that early lead. What's the response for TL?
Well, the response here is very true, as I will be saying is swearing on the Summoner's Code. Don't do anything early game. Don't do anything stupid early. You don't want to give Jizuke 2 kills. So playing a very standard composition
Don't invade?
You have, don't invade. You don't have to win early. Get to the mid game so that Evil Genius's multifaceted calls just start messing them up, and then you win because you have superior shot calling, you got core JJ. So really, just keep things even, and you'll probably just win.
Wait for them to shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, that's NA Spring for you. That's where we're at.
All right, well, there you have
Liquid
it.
needs it.
TL's recipe for victory. Do nothing until the enemy team loses. Let's hand it over to Freak and Azael for that game one.
Thank you very much. Hello.
Hello. Counterpoint to Crumb's point, Cloud9.
Yep.
they win every game in 30 minutes or less.
Guilty.
So, clearly we are having the examples of how you can play proactive, how you can play aggressive. We are seeing more teams buy into that. Obviously, TSM, was trying that, and that was kind of one of the drafts up for trial there.
Sure.
But I'm interested to see what we get out of TL and EG. TL specifically having had time to practice with Broxa.
Yeah.